Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going on an epic journey, and I mean a 6,000-year journey, into the heart of Indian philosophy. We're going to explore a tradition of thought that has literally shaped billions of lives, and you might be surprised continues to influence our world in some really fascinating ways. So, let me just ask you something. Have you ever really thought about concepts like karma or reincarnation? What about the nature of the soul itself? Those big questions, like, do my actions really have consequences beyond just this life? And what in the world happens after we die?
Well, if any of that has ever crossed your mind, then guess what? Congratulations, you're already a philosopher. Seriously, you are tapping into the exact same questions that have absolutely captivated Indian thinkers for millennia.
Okay, so let's get into it. Here's the game plan. First, we're going to start at the very beginning with the Vedic origins. Then, we'll look at a huge philosophical split that happened. After that, we'll jump into an era of really intense debate, see how these ancient ideas got a new lease on life in the modern world, and finally, we'll break down the core ideas that are still with us today.
So our story kicks off way back in the Vedic age. And you can really think of this as the bedrock, the foundational source code that the entire operating system of Indian philosophy is built on.
This timeline here gives us a fantastic bird's eye view. We're starting way back, around 4000 BCE, with the Vedas. Then we'll see this explosion of debate and new schools of thought. From there, it's all about deep interpretation, and finally, we'll bring it right up to the modern era to see how these ideas are still very much alive and kicking. Now, what's really cool is we're going to zoom in on a specific part of the Vedas. They're called the Upanishads. See, the earlier parts were mostly about hymns and rituals. But the Upanishads, this is where the real deep philosophical questions start to pop up. This is where people started asking, okay, but what is all this? What is the actual nature of reality?
And out of the Upanishads came these massive foundational concepts. First, you have Brahma, this idea of a single ultimate reality that underlies everything. Then there's Atman, which is like the eternal soul, the unchanging self inside every living thing. And of course, there's reincarnation, that famous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And what's the point of it all? Well, they propose an ultimate goal, moksha, which means liberation, or finally escaping that cycle.
Okay, so once this incredible foundation was laid, things got complicated. A huge split happened in Indian thought, and it all boiled down to one single massive question. Do you accept the authority of the Vedas? Or do you say, thanks but no thanks, I'm gonna find my own way to the truth? And this is a super important point, so listen up. When we talk about atheist or Gnostica in this context, it has nothing to do with believing in a god or not. It's all about whether you accept the authority of the Vedas. The Gnostica schools were basically saying, you know what? We're gonna figure this out on our own, without relying on those ancient texts.
So this chart breaks it down perfectly. You've got two main camps. In one corner, you have the Gnostica schools, the ones who rejected the Vedas. That's Charvaka, Jainism, and Buddhism. And in the other corner, you have the Astika schools, the six so-called orthodox schools that all said, yep, the Vedas are our foundation.
And that brings us to the next major chapter, the Age of Interpretation. Okay, so all these different schools of thought are now established. What happens next? Well, now the real fun begins. Debating, arguing, interpreting, and just trying to unpack all the super complex ideas in those Vedic texts, especially the Vedanta.
So think about it. How on earth do you pass down these incredibly complex ideas over hundreds, even thousands of years? Well, these early thinkers came up with a genius system. First, they'd condense these huge ideas into these short, punchy, memorable formulas called sutras, kind of like philosophical tweets. Then, later scholars would come along and write these massive commentaries called bhashyas to explain what the heck those dense little sutras actually meant. It was an amazing way to keep the knowledge alive and evolving. And probably the most famous debate from this whole era was a real heavyweight match about the nature of reality itself. It basically created two totally different ways to live a spiritual life. In one corner, you have Shankaracharya. His take, there is only one ultimate reality, Brahma. Everything else, the world, you, me, it's all just an illusion, or mithya. For him, the only way out, the only path to liberation was through pure knowledge. But in the other corner, you had thinkers like Ramanuja. He argued, no way, the world is real, our souls are real. And for him, the path to salvation wasn't through abstract knowledge, but through devotion, bhakti, to a personal God. So it was really a battle between the path of the head and the path of the heart.
Alright, let's fast forward quite a bit, into the modern era. Suddenly, Indian philosophy is facing a whole new set of challenges, a big one being colonialism. And this period, this clash of cultures, it actually sparked this incredible renewal, a total reevaluation of all these ancient ideas. So, this new movement pops up called Neo-Vedanta, and its whole goal was to take these ancient ideas and reinterpret them for the modern world. And this wasn't just some stuffy academic thing. No, thinkers started to connect these philosophical principles to real-world super important issues, things like social justice and national identity. And wow, this era produced some absolute giants who showed just how powerful and flexible these ideas could be. You have Swami Vivekananda, who took Vedanta and yoga and introduced them to the whole Western world. You have Mahatma Gandhi, who took philosophical principles like nonviolence and used them to fuel a political revolution. Then there's Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who used philosophy as a weapon to fight the caste system and even founded his own school of Buddhism. And you even had thinkers like Osho, who were blending this Eastern mysticism with modern psychology. It was a time of incredible innovation.
So, okay, we've been on this wild 6,000-year journey. After all that, what are the big ideas? What are the core concepts that have really lasted? The ones you see popping up again and again across almost all these different schools?
Well, it really boils down to three main pillars. Now, you have to set aside the materialist Sharvika school. They were the exception. But almost everyone else, they embraced the law of karma, this idea that your actions have consequences, cause and effect. They also believed in reincarnation, the soul being reborn. And finally, they all shared this ultimate goal of moksha, that final liberation from the whole cycle.
Maybe the entire spirit of this incredibly long and diverse tradition can be summed up by this one ancient verse from the Rig Veda. Truth is one, but the wise speak of it in many ways. I mean, what a powerful idea, right? It speaks to this sense of humility, this understanding that there isn't just one right answer, but many, many valid paths to figuring out the ultimate truth.
And that really brings us to a final question, something for